Research case study presentation by Dana Price. I must first start this presentation by providing a disclaimer that no names will be mentioned out of respect of the artist manager's request, as this is an ongoing negotiation. The conflict and involved parties. So just to give a little background information to catch you up to speed to the conflict at hand. In this scenario, the artist is a well-known, established, independent hip-hop music artist who has opened for and performed with artists such as A$AP Rocky, B.O.B., and Wiz Khalifa, just to name a few. This artist has also been nominated for a BET Hip Hop Music Award in 2013. This artist was asked to perform at an event in which Feli was a sponsor of. The event promoter wanted the artist to wear some of the sponsor of the event's clothing, but the artist already had an existing contract with Adidas that does not allow for him to wear any other sneaker brand's clothing or paraphernalia while performing, nor perform where any other sneaker brand signs are visible. So the conflict at hand is that the artist has already met his original contract obligations, and the event promoter now is wanting to renegotiate the terms of the original contract. So the parties involved are the event promoter and the artist managers. The positions or the standpoints of the parties involved on the part of the event promoter is his wanting to pay a reduced fee to the artist. The position of the artist managers is they want the artist to be paid the agreed amount of the original contract. The interests are the reasons supporting the positions of the parties involved. So the interest of the event promoter is his feeling that he could possibly lose Feli for future sponsorship. The interest of the artist manager is the feeling that the artist did as expected. He met his contract obligations to the event promoter and should be paid according to his original contract. We've learned several negotiation techniques in this deal making and the negotiation class, and one of which that stands out in this particular situation is objective criteria. The objective criteria in this situation is the fact that the artist had an existing contract with Adidas that didn't allow him to wear any other sneaker brand's clothing during performance or perform where other brand signs are visible. This objective criteria was provided to the event promoter prior to the performance and long before the event was even put into place. Another technique on the part of the event promoter was dirty tricks. The event promoter attempted to force his position even after being informed of objective criteria. The event promoter did this by directly addressing the artist about the situation, as well as reiterating his position to the artist's day-to-day manager just before the artist went on to perform. The event promoter also introduced the artist's day-to-day manager to one of the Feli sponsors just before the artist's performance and mentioned his position again of allowing the artist to wear the Feli clothing. As a result, the artist's day-to-day manager informed the event promoter that the artist would not be able to wear the Feli clothing provided. The event promoter became upset as the artist manager made this statement in front of one of the Feli sponsors. Now, this was not intentional on the artist manager part, but the event promoter did initiate that conversation when he introduced the manager to the Feli sponsor. It's my opinion that the event promoter intentionally used negative emotions in an effort to coerce the manager into allowing the artist to wear the clothing. So basically, the event promoter put the artist manager on the spot in hopes that he would give in to the event promoter's position. Another negotiation technique that's very important is BATNA, which is an alternative option. Although the managers were not prepared to provide a BATNA, they did offer the possibility of having the artist's entourage wear the feline clothing. They explained to the event promoter that the entourage does not have a deal with feline, so therefore if they chose to, they could wear the feline clothing that was provided by the sponsors. Unfortunately, this option did not pan out for the event promoter because the artist's entourage did not want to wear the clothing. So there's several things that went well in this negotiation process. The first of which I had to commend the artist manager on was her ability to stay professional in the situation and not react to the event promoter's dirty tricks in a negative manner. The second thing that went well is that the artist was still able to perform. In this situation, the artist manager could have decided to pull the artist from the performance, but instead they went ahead and allowed him to perform and meet his contract obligations. Another thing that went well is that the artist managers were firm on their position without displaying negative emotions. So the artist managers did not become rude or disrespectful or even intentionally embarrass the event promoter in front of his sponsors. They simply stayed firm on their position and continued to state that the artist would not be able to fulfill the request of the event promoter. And lastly, the artist managers addressed the problem instead of focusing on the person. So therefore, they were able to separate the person from the problem. In this situation, it could have been very easy for the artist managers to place blame and point a finger and basically point out that the whole situation and conflict was caused by the event promoter, but instead they only addressed the problem that the artist would not be able to fulfill the request of the event promoter. There's definitely apparent things that went wrong in this negotiation process. The first of which being that the event promoter ignored pertinent information previously provided by the artist manager. It's never a good idea in a negotiation process to ignore important information. It's not helpful to any party involved. You're not likely to get what it is that you're requesting, and in some cases, by some people, it can be deemed or seen as disrespectful, inconsiderate, and rude. Another thing that went wrong is that the event promoter did not have a BATNA for the artist not being able to wear the sponsor's apparel. Had the event promoter had a backup plan or an alternative option, it could have been worked into the original contract terms and there would not be a need for a renegotiation. And lastly, the agreed upon terms of the contract between the event promoter and the artist were not upheld by the event promoter. The artist fulfilled his contract agreement and provided the performance as he was supposed to, and the artist has not been paid. So the end result of this negotiation is that it's still ongoing at this very moment. The artist managers are holding firm on their position. They are also waiting to see if there will be any backlash on the part of Adidas, whether Adidas will maybe want to sue or pull the deal from the artist, since technically the contract that the artist has with Adidas was breached. In that event, I did recommend to the artist manager that in the event that Adidas does want to pull their deal or attempt to sue the artist, that they could in turn legally sue the event promoter, as the event promoter is the one that caused the direct breach, and the breach of contract with Adidas on the artist's part was indirect. Although the artist did not wear the clothing, the event promoter did not remove the signs during the artist's performance. So that is what would have caused the breach of contract with Adidas and the artist. And the artist is still awaiting payment for his performance at this time. That is definitely not a situation that any party wants, to fulfill their contract and then find themselves having to renegotiate after they've already met their end of the contract. And no one wants to not get paid for their works, especially when their payment has already been agreed upon. So I hope this information is helpful to any other students or anyone that is in a negotiation process, of knowing and learning and understanding that things don't always work out the way that you plan them to, and they don't always work out according to a contract. So it's definitely something to be mindful of.